Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Alright, that's fine, thank you. Alright, so I'm starting the recording and then 2 days later. Alright, so welcome to today's class. We are currently in the second module in this chapter. I think this module has only 3 chapters or so I think 3 or 4 chapters, so we should be running up this chapter by next week. Alright, so yesterday we talked about incident response plan, and today we are going to be looking at our business continuity. So when we go straight into this, you might be wondering what's the difference between incident response plan and business continuity planning, because they are a bit similar. But if you remember yesterday, I mentioned that incident response plan is a subset of business continuity planning. So business continuity planning is business continuity planning takes care of all the business activities. We plan for all the incidents and other things. Whereby for the incident response plan, it's mainly designed for incidents that occur that you can quickly recover from. Whereby the business continuity planning is designed so as you can. So the incident response is a subset, is a part of business continuity plan. So the business continuity plan is the larger set. So our objective for today is to summarize and understand the component of a business continuity plan. So what is business continuity? So business continuity in cybersecurity is the organization roadmap for responding to and recovering from cyber threat. So it's as simple as that. So it's like a proactive plan to make sure that your business can bounce back after a cybersecurity attack, a data breach, or maybe a security incident. So just like the example we gave yesterday for the telecommunication, for the cable cuts that we had last week, which affected banks, telecoms, and some other businesses that rely on broadband, that rely on internet. So just like I mentioned yesterday, the issue is yet to be resolved, right? But organizations, they've been able to continue their business as usual, even though they are still trying to resolve the issue. So what they have done is that they've been able to activate their incident response, which is part of their business continuity plan. But right now, they are still doing other things to make sure everything go back to normal, and then they can now resume business in a full way that it used to be before the cut. So that means that they have to restore the original cable that cut, and then they can now switch back to their normal processes. So when you are using your backup, or when you are using your backup lines, you are responding to the incident, right? But you still continue fixing everything till you can now resume normal business operation. So business continuity plan is much longer than business continuity is a much more longer process than incident response. All right, so how they apply to cybersecurity is very similar to the incident response plan. For business continuity also, you have to carry out your preparation, whereby you identify potential threats, you analyze their impact, then you outline the strategies to reduce the impact of the threat or to eliminate the threat if possible. Then you also have to communicate your BCP plans to all the stakeholders, everyone that needs to know. You have to also come up with a plan for the communication. And then one of the important things is your recovery steps. So the plan details steps to take to restore affected system data and the overall functionality. So just like I said, your incident response plan is part of your business continuity plan. Your disaster recovery plan, which is going to be the next thing we are going to cover next week, is also part of your business continuity plan. Then the business continuity plan itself covers everything. So they are all subsets. Incident response and disaster recovery are actually a subset of our business continuity. And business continuity aims to get your critical operation back up and running as quickly as possible. So because your incident response is part of your business continuity, so you can give the incident response the credit of this. So you get your critical operation back up and running as quickly as possible, and then you can now continue fixing the other part of it before you now resume normal operation. So let's say, for example, in the case of a fire incident in a data center, for example. So let's say you have a data center, you have a tier 2, a tier 3 and tier 4 data center. You are running operation from one, whereby you are using the other one as a backup. So let's say one is in Lagos, the backup is in Abuja, for example. Your main data center is in Lagos, and then the backup is in Abuja. So let's say, for example, there's a fire incident in the Lagos data center, right? So the first thing you do is to activate your incident response and disaster recovery plan. So that's what you need to do first, which is part of your business continuity, which will make sure that your critical function, which is to provide access to data for your customers, that you are hosting their data, that they don't have any form of downtime. So you switch to your backup, which is in Abuja, from the one in Lagos, which has already caught fire. And then you can now continue running your business from the one in Abuja. But mind you, you see that you are running it from your backup. So you need to bring back the one in Lagos. So you have to continue the other process, which is your business continuity, which is going to be a bigger plan in your business continuity. So I think I'm able to, so I still have where we will talk about the difference between the two of them. So what are the key points in business continuity, or why is business continuity important? So business continuity is important because, one, it helps us to prepare for recovery. So it ensures that the business can continue to function after a major disruption. So in the case of the fire that I just used as an example, if you have your business continuity plan already, in which your incident response is going to be part of it, you can continue function as early as possible after a major disruption. Then communication is also critical. So you have to take into consideration if your primary means of communicating is also not available. So you have to look for other ways to communicate. So depending on the organization you find yourself, so let's say for military now, for example, so let's say phone lines are cut, and then phone lines are cut, there's no internet, and they have people that are going on a mission in the field. In military, they usually, so when so what they do most times is they have satellite phones which they use to communicate. So that's a good example. So you have to make sure that there are other ways of communicating your plans, or for communicating in case your primary line of communication or your primary communication channel is down. Then the next one is another important thing is that business continuity plan establish protocols that guarantees that no essential steps are missed during recovery. So if you don't document your process of recovery, or from recovering from a major disruption, and you're just doing things as they come, you will not be surprised that you will leave a lot of things undone, or maybe you do things that you're supposed to do before, you do them after, or you do things that you can do later, you do them earlier. So that's why it's important. That's why business continuity also helps to keep that checklist, and then you do them in a serial order till you're able to complete everything on the checklist. So it guides us to make sure that we have not missed any essential step during recovery. So part of the planning is also assembling the team. So you need to come up with a business continuity planning team. You need to come up with a team that will. You need to identify teams and their roles and responsibility, right? You need to do that so that everyone will know what they need to do when something is happening. So in the case of a fire incident, you need to have people that will be the one to maybe get people to safety. You need to have people that will do head count at the muster point. You need to have people that will do the firefighting. You need to have people that will contact the fire service to come and assist you. So if all these things are not properly identified, right, you will see that when this thing happen, a lot of things will damage, because you will not know who is going to do. You will not be able to know who will do what, and then everybody will become confused. But the moment you have the right team, the moment you have assembled your team, right, the moment you have assembled your team, everybody will know what to do and they can make their decision as fast as possible, which will lead to a very smooth operation. But if you don't have those teams already identified and you have not assembled them, when a disaster happens, you find it very difficult to recover from. Then another important thing is to extend communication beyond facility. So you need to make sure that you have your depending on the line of business you find yourself, maybe your supply chain, your law enforcement, or your driver. So let's say, for example, now for let's use telecom for example. So let's say the fiber came from undersea, and then we see that almost of these fibers are laid around in our where we are staying. You see that they dig ground and lay these fibers, and then they are being maintained. Sometimes you see that they bring the cables out to work on them. So in most cases, those engineers that are working on those cables, they might not be employee of that particular organization. So in that case, they are external. So when there is a cable cut, you may need to reach out to them, and then they will go and investigate for you, or they will know, most likely the way the fiber cables are designed, they will know where the cable cut happened, and then they will be able to go and do it for you, to fix it, and then for you to be able to have a good operation. And then of course, law enforcement, you may need escorts. Maybe there's a security challenge. For those of us that are in the north, we know that there are some local government that you cannot go to, right, without the help of security personnel. So you have to also keep that in mind. You have to open that line of communication. You have to factor it in your business continuity planning. Then the last one is make contingencies for communication outage. So I've spoke about that one when I was talking about communication. So you need to communicate. So one of the most important aspects of recovery is communication, right? Because your teams may be located in different places, and then you may need to communicate for people to know what to do, or for you to be able to pass proper instruction to them. So you need to make sure that if your primary line of communication is not available, then you can switch to the backup. So just like I said previously, you may be wondering, then what is the difference? Because everything we mentioned about yesterday for incident response plan and what I'm talking about now for business continuity are very similar, or maybe they are the same. So we'll look at the difference now. We'll look at the key difference so that we can see where they are different. So the first one is we'll look at the scope. For the scope of the BCP is quite broad. It's much more broader than incident response plan. So BCP covers a broader focus. BCP takes care of any threat that you can imagine, from technological threats, from physical threats to natural disaster, power outage, pandemic, cyber attacks, and the likes. So BCP does that, whereby incident response plan zooms in specifically on cyber security incidents and data breach. So our incident response plan is actually more of technical. So it makes plan for how you recover from technical breaches, right? So let's say a password attack, a denial of service attack, or maybe there is a cable cut somewhere. So what you need to do is you activate your incident response plan. So or maybe there's a ransomware attack and stuff like that. So that's actually incident response. Okay, so that's the scope. So their scope is a bit different. That of the BCP is wider, while that of incident response plan is specific to cybersecurity incidents and data breaches. So the next one is the objectives. So BCP aims to maintain core business functions during and after a significant disruption, ensuring continuity. So that's what BCP is all about. Maintain your core. So as you can see, maintain core business function during and after. So as you can see, so your BCP plan ensures that you can be able to continue business while the disruption is going on, and also when you are done resolving everything, you still continue doing your business. While incident response plan focus on containing, eradicating, and recovering from a specific security incident to minimize damage. So you can see their difference now. So now, let's say, for example, the example we've been using yesterday now, for the general cable cut that we have. So what the network provider did is that they tried to switch to their backup to minimize the damage. What damage can happen to them if they don't have network? They are going to lose money. They are going to lose customer goodwill. People will no longer trust their services. So for them to minimize the damage, they have to do something quick and fast, which is what they did, recover from a specific security incident, which is what actually happened. And then business continuity, now they will still continue doing other things to ensure that business can now continue as usual, and then they can now call it off and say, okay, we have been able to resolve this problem and everything is now back to normal. Yeah, so in the time frame, so their time frame is also quite different. So BCP takes a longer time, but because all this incident response plan is part of BCP, disaster recovery is part of BCP, your backup recovery plan is part of BCP. So you can see that those ones can come a bit earlier. So as you can see, incident response emphasizes on immediate response and action taken in the first hours or days following a cyber attack or maybe a security incident. So incident response is what you do immediately to respond, just like the example I gave yesterday for medical, for someone that has an accident, right? So when the ambulance get there, the first responder, they can administer first aid, do CPR, and then they can now bundle the patient and take the patient to the hospital for proper evaluation. So this is still the same thing. So IRP is immediate response and action taking, so that so that the impact will be minimized. Then you can now continue the other process of business continuity plan. So just keep it at the back of your mind that incident response plan is also part of the business continuity plan. It's one of the things you activate when you are doing business continuity plan. So component of a business continuity plan. So for you to be able to complete your business continuity plan, you need to have a whole lot of components in it. So we've talked about some part of it previously. You need to have a BCP team members, which include you need to have a list. You need to have a document which will contain their contact, so that you know who to call. So for example, if you are in an elevator or if you are in a lift, you get to see some emergency numbers. They will call you, call this number in case of an emergency. So that's the team they belong to. So they belong to the elevator team. So there are other people within the organizations that also have different roles for them to do. So they need to be a list of their contact, and then they also need to have backup member in case the day that event occurred, maybe some of them are not at work. So you don't need to start running around. You know who is the backup for that particular individual. So the next component of BCP is your immediate response checklist, which I've also talked about previously. So you need to have a checklist, you need to have a document. People need to know what to do. So you need to know, so for example, if it's a fire incident, you need to know how to approach it. If it's a denial of service attack, you need to know how you need to approach it. And also, of course, you need to notify appropriate emergency response agency. If there's a need for you to notify them, just like the NG set that I talked about yesterday, then you need to know, you have to notify them. If it's a data breach, you may need to notify the Nigeria Data Protection Bureau. So all those things need to be stated in your business continuity. It's part of your component of your business continuity plan. So the next thing is the notification system and call trees for alerting personnel that BTP. So you need to also, so this is more like a communication. You need to notify people either with system or manually to alert them so that they will know that BCP is being enacted. For example, in the case of a fire incident, maybe depending on the organization, there may be a fire alarm, right? There may be a fire alarm or an emergency alarm that will sound. So once everybody hear that sound, they know what to do. You know what to do next. You have to go down, you have to do this, you have to do that. So you have to put all these things in place. Then another important component is guidance for management. Okay, including designation of authority for specific managers. Yeah, so you need to also carry the management along. You need to provide guidance for them on how to make decisions, right? On how to specific managers in each organization, maybe the head of security, the head of social team. They need to know what to do. They will be the one to probably pass the instruction to their staffs, and for them to know what to do and when to do it. So it's also important to provide guidance for management when you are coming up with your mitigation strategies, right? Because management need to fund your business continuity plan. Okay, and part of your business continuity plan is also to put things in place to make sure that you have provided necessary risk, necessary solutions or mitigations to the risk in which you have identified, right? So you need to provide guidance to the management on how to fund the project. So the next one is how and when to enact the plan. So this is part of the planning phase of business continuity. So you need to have the how you are going to come up with a plan, and when. So you need to put a time frame to it. So business continuity plan is like a project, right? So it must have a beginning and it must have an end. So you need to put a when to it and also a how to it. Then of course the last one, which we have also talked about previously, is contact number for critical members of maybe your supply chain, security, vendors, emergency provider, third party partners, etc., depending on the line of business the organization is in. So another important thing is there's a keeping what we call a red book. So because organizations, we know now the world is digital, okay, but you need to think of a situation whereby you cannot access the digital file, right? Maybe due to a power failure, or maybe due to a natural disaster, or whatever can make you not be able to access the digital file, right? So it's recommended for your organization to keep a physical copy of all these procedures that we have talked about, which is usually called the red book. So the red book ensures access to your BCP information even if the electronic system fails. So when you are unable to have access to the digital business continuity plan, you can activate the red book, and the red book are usually not kept on premises, right? Because it may be to avoid a fire incident, or you can't have access to the building. They are usually kept off-site, probably maybe in a bank or in a safe somewhere where the organization can keep something, and then where it's going to be easy for them to retrieve it, and then you can now follow it. So it's also very important to make sure that you keep the physical file update. Any update you make to the digital file, you have to make sure you also update the physical file so that they will be the same. So that's all about the red book. So it's just a scenario where you have the physical copy of your business continuity plan kept somewhere in case of a power outage or a disaster that didn't allow you access to the digital file. Okay, so for you to be able to carry out business continuity plan, you need to understand how a business function. You need to understand the component of a business. And what are the components of a business? In every business, right now in the world today, you are going to see these three things which are very important. You are going to see the people, you are going to see the process, and you are going to see the technology. So who are the people? People is you and I, the employers, the management, the vendors, the customers, the clients, and stuff like that. Then process is what the people follow to carry out their day-to-day activities, right? So for example, in a bank, when you want to open an account, you go into the bank, they give you a form, you fill it, they ask for your BVN, they ask for your passport, they give you a form to sign, you sign it, and then you give it to someone to input your details on the system, and then after maybe 1 or 2 or 3 days, you get to see your account number. Then you can now go back, they give you ATM and stuff like that. So that's process, right? So that's the process, or that's how it works. So process is day to day, is how they achieve the goal in that particular organization. And then the next one, or the last one, is technology, or we can also call it infrastructure, or sorry, technology. So let's stick with technology now. So technology is what the people use to carry out the process. So after you have filled the form, right, someone will put it on the system, or maybe it's something you can fill, like all this OP and PAMPay. You fill it directly from your phone. So that's technology. You use the internet, you use the web application that has been designed. You take your data, your information, you put it in their data center, right? So when you credit, the money will be credited. When you transfer money out, your account will be debited. So they also have other technology in place, like their protection, like their firewall, their servers, and other stuff like that. So all those are technology. Okay, then another important thing is infrastructure. So your technology can be part of your infrastructure, and then your physical assets, maybe your bank building, are also part of the infrastructure. So all these three things work together. The people make use of all these things, right? People use process, right? People carry out the process using technology. Okay, and the technology relies on the infrastructure, and then the cycle goes. But as you can see, all these components must be present and they all work together. So that's the first thing you need to understand before you now start planning your business continuity. You need to know that you have the people who you must protect, from your employee to your customers to your vendors and other stuff like that. And then you have the process, which is, if there's no process, if there's a loophole in your process, then it's going to affect the goal of the organization. And if any of your technology fail, you may have disruptions, right? And if your infrastructure, if there's any problem with any of your infrastructure, key infrastructure, you may also have problems. So there's an interplay among these three. So we can say technology is implemented by people using specific process. So this is just a word of explaining. So we look at steps in building your business continuity and disaster recovery planning. So these are the standard steps that you need to follow when you are coming up with your business continuity plan and disaster recovery plan for an organization that you find yourself. Okay, the first thing is your project initiation. The next one is you conduct a risk assessment. Then you carry out your business impact analysis. You come up with your mitigation strategies development. Then you come up with the actual plan development. Then you train your users, you test the plan, and then you carry out an audit for you to be able to know where there are loopholes. And then based on your findings or based on new trends, you continue maintain the plan, because a business continuity plan is a living document. So we'll take all this one by one and then we'll look at it. So project initiation. Project initiation is one of the most important elements when you are planning your business continuity and disaster recovery plan, because that's when you conceive the idea. That's when you have the idea of doing the business continuity plan. And then the first thing you need to do is that you need to make sure that you have the full organization support. You need to get the first thing you may need to get, or the first thing you will need to get, is to get the management buy-in. So when you get your management buy-in, you'll be able to work with all the other employee or all the other stakeholders within the organization, because you need to understand their business process before you can create a company-wide business continuity plan and disaster recovery plan. Because as an IT professional or as a cybersecurity professional, right, you don't know everything. You don't know how the customer service functions, right? So you need to carry everybody along. You need to get the full organization support, which the best way to get this is to make sure that you get a management approval. And also you need management approval. Part of your project initiation is that you also need management approval, because you will need some form of funding to be able to actualize business continuity plan, right? So you need funding, and also you are going to also need you are going to need a team. You are going to form a team which is going to be organization wide. So all these things are going to be determined in your project initiation. So this, for example, we have here is that so it's just giving you an example that you may not understand the permission you may need to set for a particular business organization. You may know how to set permission for some business applications, but you don't really know how the users interact with it. For example, you may know how to give permission to, so let's stick with the bank that we've been using as an example since. So let's say you have there's a teller, there are customer service people that interact mostly with clients, right? You as a security expert or as an IT professional, you can set their right and permission. You can give them principle of less privilege and blah 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 to the tellers, but you are not the one using the system. You are not the one interacting with the customers. So they are the ones using the system and interacting with the customers, and then they will know where there will be problem. They are the one that will understand the risk better than you. So you need to carry them along. You need to discuss with them to know how you can cater for all the scenarios. So these are all these questions that all this thing is asking. So do you have a way to allow user to connect to the applications? Why are the user located? How will business resume? So these are all the questions you may need to ask by carrying other people along. Okay, so just like I said, you will not be able to have answers to these questions. Okay, all these questions that we have here and the one I've been asking, you will not be able to have answers to them, because you are not the one actually interacting with the customers. You are not the one using the application. So that's why it's very important to get an organization full support, so that you'll be able to discuss with subject matters from other departments. You need to understand what are the risks. For example, if your organization is into supply chain and then you send invoice or you make payments by invoice, so you need to speak to your accounting team for you to understand how it works, how their process works. Okay, and then it's when you understand how it works that you'll be able to give them recommendations on that's when you'll be able to factor in their peculiarities into your business continuity plan, right? So it's very important one of the key aspects of the project initiation is to get your executive and company-wide support, so that the whole process is going to be a success, so that you work with all the team, you get all the information required, and then you can now use it to make your plan. So after all those things are done, after you have already gotten the management support, you have spoken with all the subject matter experts from different departments and what have you, then the next thing you need to do is to carry out your risk assessment. So for the risk assessment, you still need to sit down with those people that you have identified your project initiation, okay, and look at potential risk from your company face. So you need to identify all from the least, from the smallest risk to the highest risk. You need to identify them. So during this your risk assessment, you're going to carry out your threat assessment, you're going to carry out your vulnerability assessment. So you're going to understand, you're going to know all the assets that you have in the organization. Yes, we're going to create what we call an asset register, which will indicate all the type of assets you have in the organization. You classify them, hardware, software, people, your cameras, your infrastructure, your technology, everything. You're going to identify them here, and then you are going to look at all the risk that they can be exposed to, right? So as an IT professional also, you still need to carry out you need to carry other people along. So just like this place is saying, for example, it's likely that a marketing manager might best understand the potential business risk of a contaminated product or a website breach, right? So it's important for you to carry all these people along when you are doing your risk assessment. But the key things that you're going to do under your risk assessment is that you need to create your asset register, which is very important. You need to identify all the threats that this your asset can be exposed to, and then also you need to identify all the vulnerabilities that can be exploited for those threats to happen, or for the threat to be realized, right? So you need to also identify all your vulnerabilities. So when you are able to do this and complete your risk assessment, you have identified your threats, you have identified your vulnerabilities, you have identified the threat actors, and then the next thing for you to do will be for you to conduct what we call a business impact analysis. So business impact analysis is actually the most important aspect of your business continuity plan. So this is where you determine which of your system or which of your equipment is mission critical, which one is important, which one which one you can come back to. Okay, so it's at this stage that you're going to, so based on your threats that you have identified, based on the vulnerability you have identified, based on the asset you have identified, then you'll be able to determine which one is the most important. Okay, so when all the chips are down, which one must not go down, or even if it goes down, which one must come back up first. So it's going to be, so for example, so let's say for a telecommunication organization, their most important, what they will pay most attention to will not be the same thing to what a bank, for example, will pay attention to. So for a bank will say, okay, even if you're having a downtime, let our customers be able to transact, let them be able to withdraw money, and then we can bring the other service back little by little, right? For telecoms, they will say, let our customers be able to make calls, let them be able to browse, and then subsequently we can start working on other things. So it's during the business impact analysis that you are going to determine. You have about like four categories of criticality that you need to identify. So you choose your mission critical, you choose your essential or vital, you choose the ones that are important, and then you choose the ones that are minor. So it's very important. So once you are able to come up with these parameters, okay, once you are able to know which one is important, which one must we do first, which one can be done later, so the next thing you now look at is to come up with a mitigation strategy development. So then you can now say, okay, we need to have a backup, right? We need to, so for example, for a bank, they can say, okay, we are running our main application on AWS. Because of scalability, we need it to scale, so we are using a cloud service provider. Okay, so but as backup, you can say, okay, maybe when AWS is having issue, or maybe if there's a problem in AWS, you can now say, okay, you have a back, you still have another platform, maybe in-house, that you are going to use to at least take care of your customers, even though it may not be as fast or it may not be as efficient as your AWS. I'm not saying AWS is the best. I'm just giving an example. It can be that your in-house is the best, and then you use the AWS as your backup. So the most important thing is that it's during this stage that you come up with your mitigation strategy. So this is where you are going to determine to have a backup. This is where you are going to determine to have a firewall. This is when you are going to determine to have a security gaps. This is when you are going to determine to ensure your data. Okay, so all these things are going to be done in this page, and your risk, you can there are 4 ways in which you can mitigate your risk, or you can reduce the impact of the threat when they occur. So you can either tolerate the risk, you can reduce it, you can avoid it, or you can transfer it. I think we have talked about all these things before, where we talk about risk acceptance, risk transfer, risk mitigation or risk reduction, and then risk avoidance, right? So I believe we have talked about this previously, but for context here, so you can decide to tolerate the risk if you see that maybe what you might spend to take care of that particular risk is much more than what you stand to lose should the threat is actualized. So you can decide to tolerate the risk. Then you can decide to reduce the risk by having your mitigation strategy, maybe by doing your firewall, using strong password and stuff like that. So all those ones cannot stop the attack, right? But they can what? They can help you to reduce the impact of the attack. Okay, so the next one is to avoid the risk totally. So when you know that this is a risk, you can totally avoid it. So an example of that is that maybe you see that your organization is located in a location that is flood prone, so you can decide to move out from that place and move to another place, and then you can transfer risk through insurance. So that's just a good example. Or maybe you outsource, you transfer your risk to a willing third party that is willing to accept the risk. Either you outsource it or you insure your product. So, and then the other ones are quite straightforward. So after you have done all these things, then you come up with the actual plan. You develop the plan, you write the plan, you create all your checklists, you define your scope, the budget, the timeline, your quality metrics and everything. So this is where you are going to do all those things, and then you come up with the proper plan. So once the plan is ready, once the plan has been developed, then you are going to train your people or your employees on how to do it. So you can do this by drills or exercise or simulation. So for many people that works in maybe corporate organization, you get to see that once in a while you get to see maybe a fire drill in the organization. Maybe when you are working, you just hear wow, 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 and then people start filing up. You line up, they go to the muster. So all those things are testing. They are testing your business continuity plan in case when the actual event or when the actual incident will happen, so that people will know what to do. So and then in the process of you testing it, then maybe you see that maybe for a fire incident you see that your staircase is a little bit narrow, and maybe in 5 minutes you've not been able to evacuate the people. So you can see that okay, you need to go back to your business continuity plan and make further adjustments. So maybe you may need to do another staircase, or maybe you make the staircase wider. So that's just an example. So when you train people and you test your business continuity plan, you get to see the limitations, right? And when you see the limitations, you use it to maintain the plan, which is the last thing we're going to talk about. So you maintain the plan because it's a living document, just like I said. So you have to update it, maybe based on your audits or testing the plan, or maybe based on new threats that you come about. So whenever there is a new threat, you have to factor it into your business continuity plan. so that when it happens, you will not be caught unguarded. So so you need to continue. So this will now be like a loop. So from your maintenance, you go back to your project initiation, you do it all over again till you finish it, then you test, you find loopholes, then you go again till kingdom comes. So that's how it continues. So it's a living document. You have to be updating it periodically from time to time. So that is what business continuity is all about. So and that brings us to the end of the class. So I believe we still have a little bit of time. Yeah, so let me see. Yeah, so this is the